If you've been scrolling through endless options for a commercial ice machine and still feel stuck, this review should clear that up. You've probably watched a dozen videos, read a handful of specs, maybe even skimmed some reviews that all sound the same: big production, big price, big hassle. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. In the next few minutes I'm going to walk through exactly what the Manitowoc IYT0450A brings to the table, who really benefits from its capabilities, and where the hidden trade-offs lie so you can avoid the common buyer's remorse that shows up when a piece of equipment looks perfect on paper but falls short in the real world. First off, let's talk about the situation most people find themselves in when they start hunting for an ice maker. You're either running a bar that swells with a Friday night crowd, a restaurant that needs a steady stream of ice for drinks and food prep, or a catering operation that's trying to keep a mobile bar stocked for an event. In all those scenarios, the biggest fear is buying a machine that either can't keep up with demand or ends up taking more space and maintenance time than you bargained for. The Manitowoc IYT0450A promises 490 pounds of half-dice ice every 24 hours, and it ships with a D570 storage bin that can hold roughly 532 pounds of that ice. Those numbers look impressive, but the real question is how they translate into day-to-day workflow. From a production standpoint, the half-dice size, about 3/8 of an inch thick and just over an inch long, hits the sweet spot for most bar drinks, from mixed cocktails to simple highballs. The cubes melt slower than crushed ice, which means customers aren't left with watered-down drinks after a few minutes, and the size is perfect for keeping drinks looking clean and professional. In a typical high-volume bar, you might see the machine churning out a new bin of ice every 2 to 3 hours during peak times. That cadence lines up well with the D570 bin capacity. You can run a full shift without having to pull the bin out every 30 minutes, which is a real-time saver when you're juggling orders. Now, the air-cooled design is something many buyers overlook until they install the unit. Because it relies on ambient air rather than a water-cooled condenser, the IYT0450A doesn't need a dedicated cooling water line, which simplifies installation in locations where running a new water pipe would be a hassle. On the flip side, air-cooled units generate more heat in the surrounding area. If you're placing the machine in a tight back-of-house space without adequate ventilation, you might notice the ambient temperature creeping up, which could affect other equipment or even the comfort of staff working nearby. In a well-ventilated commercial kitchen, the heat is usually no problem, but it's a factor to keep in mind if space is at a premium. Space is another practical consideration. The machine measures about 30 inches wide and weighs roughly 450 pounds, not counting the bin. It's a solid piece of equipment that needs a stable floor and enough clearance for the bin to be pulled out and refilled. For a full-service restaurant with a dedicated prep area, that footprint is manageable, but for a small coffee shop or a boutique bar with limited backroom, the unit can feel like a freight train in a narrow hallway. The weight also means you'll likely need professional movers for installation. Trying to get it up a flight of stairs on your own is not advisable. One of the strengths that often gets lost in the spec sheet is the integrated D570 storage bin. At 532 pounds of capacity, it can hold more than a day's worth of production for most mid-size venues. That translates into fewer service interruptions. No one wants a bartender stopping mid-order to swap out an ice bin. However, the bin is also heavy when full, and the mechanism that lifts it onto the machine can be a little finicky if not maintained properly. Users have reported that after a few weeks of heavy use, the lift motor can start to hum louder than expected, a sign that the unit may need a service call sooner rather than later. If you have a maintenance contract with a local refrigeration tech, that's less of a worry. If you're handling service yourself, you should budget for occasional professional checkups. Looking at the rating, 3.3 out of 5 stars from 98 reviews, the feedback seems mixed. Some owners praise the sheer volume of ice and the convenience of the